Hello, hello. It's great to be here. My name is Jeff Wilser. I am the host of the AI Curious podcast, and I am super curious and fired up for today's session. I am joined, of course, by Scott Dykstra and Mark Rydon, two absolutely the sharpest minds in the space on decentralized AI. And we're here to really get into the nuance, to get into kind of challenging the hype, going past the buzzwords of what is real, what's real, and what's kind of smoke and mirrors, what's legit, why does it matter in decentralized AI. It's a baseline thing. So let's hear a bit about what you're both focused on, your projects. Scott, tell us a bit about what you guys are focused on.
Absolutely. Well, great to be here. Excited to be at the NEAR conference. And Space and Time is a decentralized, ZK-proven database of all of crypto's data. So about 100 terabytes of data from every major chain. And we provide that data to AI agents and smart contracts that need it. And then we're also building a lot of our own AI agent infrastructure on top to help developers generate smart contracts, generate SQL queries, and generate smart contracts that make SQL queries on-chain, which are ZK proven. Ultimately, we give a lot of context about what's happening on-chain to AI agents. And we're really excited to be here.
Awesome. Mark?
Yeah. Also very excited to be here. Thank you again for having me. We are Aethir. We build decentralized GPU infrastructure for AI and gaming companies. Essentially, you can think of us as like an AWS or a Google Cloud providing high performance compute for AI infrastructure. The difference obviously being that we don't own any of that compute ourselves. It's contributed by our partners, giving us the ability to essentially kind of scale in a way that's very different from a traditional infrastructure provider.
So one thing I'd like to start with is what exactly we even mean when we say infrastructure, right? Because I was struck by a graphic Ilya showed this morning. It was an amazing schematic showing kind of the current state of play of the NEAR ecosystem alone. And by my rough count, there are 60-ish projects on this chart. I'm like, oh my God, there's so much going on, right? And a good chunk of those are infrastructure in some way or another. And that's just the NEAR world. If you zoom out, we probably have 300, 400 plus projects. So how do you guys think about even the lay of the land here, the different types of infrastructure projects, different types of verticals? Is there a taxonomy you're thinking about? Are there two or three main buckets? Scott, how do you view this kind of the overall universe, and how do you kind of break that down?
So starting at the bottom, you have projects like Aethir that are decentralized, basically aggregating commodity GPUs and incentivizing the onboarding of those GPUs. And then you have decentralized training and inference, which is a very nascent category in crypto that I think will evolve a lot over the next 2-3 years. And I think the use cases for that will become much more apparent than they are today. Then you have projects like Ritual that are a category around bringing LLM inference on-chain, like allowing smart contracts to ask questions from an LLM. You can call that AI co-processing, if you will. And then finally above that is at the consumer layer, users that are AI agents actually transacting on-chain, teams like Virtuals that are building agents like Luna that are transacting. So you have GPUs, training, bringing inference to the chain, and then finally transacting on-chain. Across those four categories, I'd say there's at least 2 or 3 very real projects in each category, and we're looking at one right here.
Mark, do you have the same kind of worldview of the lay of the land, or would you add a category? How do you guys view it?
Yeah, I don't think I'd add a category. I think what you said was very right. I mean, with AI, you have the fundamentals, right? GPU, data, models. And infrastructure kind of exists across those verticals. Aethir obviously exists in the GPU commodity space. There's a bunch of kind of different players in each segment, but infrastructure, I think, it's a funny word in crypto, right? I think it's almost kind of it almost becomes a dirty word towards the end of a cycle, right? Because we get so obsessed with infrastructure early on, right? And then we realize, holy shit, we have no actual use cases. We've built all this infrastructure, and who's using it?
Right. Yeah.
Right? What's the actual application for what we've built? So yeah, infrastructure, I think we're very, very good at, and there's a lot of growth in
the good thing is we're nowhere near the end of the AI cycle, so it's not quite a dirty word just yet, right? We have some time to play. Scott, you mentioned kind of jokingly, but kind of not jokingly, that each of these categories have 2 or 3 real projects. Obviously, without naming names, although feel free if you want to throw someone under the bus, like go for it, and we'll start some.
We'll see.
We'll start some wars here. But what types of projects or types of infrastructure strike you as a little more hypey and frothy and a little less legit?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So I think a lot of investors in the space and then a lot of teams building in the space are really excited about bringing LLM inference on-chain, like allowing smart contracts to emit an event on-chain that some off-chain AI code processor listens for that requires LLM inference. It kind of oracles the LLM result back on-chain to a smart contract. Like that's a very promising future and exciting thing, but I think the use cases for that are still TBD. Like there's a lot of use cases around governance for DAOs, maybe like dynamic NFTs. But when you get past that, I think that area is very much TBD. And we were really excited to hear from Niraj because I was going to ask him that question, like, yo, what are you most excited about use cases? That one to me is a big question mark, like how that part of the industry is going to evolve. What's not a big question mark is using crypto as an incentive mechanism to onboard a lot of commodity hardware. Like that's a very clear use case. That's a perfect use case for the blockchain, perfect use case for crypto. And that's like, that's going back to crypto's roots, using a cryptocurrency to incentivize kind of economies of scale to onboard a lot of hardware from the community, whether that's enterprise community or retail community. Finally, there's a lot of teams right now building SDKs for AI agents to transact on chain, and that's very real. That's something that hobbyist developers are using on their weekends to build their own AI agents that transact on Base or transact on Solana, and we see teams like DAOs.fun that are using those SDKs to allow third parties to create AI agents that like transact on chain and buy Beam coins. That's as real as you can get.
I love the DAOs.fun use case. You good? Yeah. To be honest, I think AI is coming into its kind of real crypto use case now. I think that, honestly, when you look at kind of the early stages of AI, very, very training focused, very LLM kind of frontier model focused, right? Mm-hmm. A space that maybe not a great fit for decentralization, right? I think large language models, when you're looking at kind of the ChatGPTs and the Anthropics, they benefit so much from centralization. Yeah. Right? A massive amount of hardware, co-located, huge amounts of data that they can just pump into these centralized systems. It's not something that inherently lends itself to decentralization, right? I think you have some really cool projects that are looking to provide alternatives to this model, right? But that's a big technical challenge that I think is not something that we'll be able to kind of immediately solve. But it's not a space that is naturally welcoming to decentralization. However, like Scott just mentioned, we're entering this period of time, I think, where crypto offers this really, really cool use case for the kind of the AI application space, like the inferencing space, the agent space. And we're seeing that just start to explode, right? DAOs.fun is a really, really cool example. Like everyone knows, like Pump.fun. DAOs.fun, similar situation, but you kind of invest in a DAO, right? And if the DAO hits enough kind of investment, the DAO goes live, there's a DAO token, and then the money that was kind of invested is meant to be used to invest within the DAO. But what kind of is happening is that people are creating AI agents, right, that are meant to be managing these DAOs. So people are investing in these DAOs on the assumption that an AI agent is going to be the portfolio manager, right? Probably a horrible idea.
Better than me being a manager of it, so I see the merits in some sense.
But people love it, yeah. And I think this is this kind of beginning of this really, really exciting space where crypto does have a really cool use case for AI. Is it going to be probably a horrible idea in the beginning? Yes, but it's going to be fun.
In some ways, I feel like in the last even 6 months, agents have exploded in terms of excitement, hype, but also, to both your points, some legitimate use cases, it's a paradox here, have the rise of agents or the expected rise of agents even change how we're thinking about infrastructure and actually are kind of like nudging and guiding how we're building infrastructure?
I mean,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'll just quickly jump in. I think it definitely should, right? Because when you think about agents, what do they do? They're meant to make our existence on-chain easier, right? More seamless. They're meant to provide the ability to kind of overcome the kind of challenges of daily existence on-chain, right? And what's cool about agents is that I would say within the next kind of 1 to 2 months, we're going to have this kind of abstraction of the complexity of interacting with crypto, right? So much of the complaints that we have with crypto are about the UX, right? How do you kind of overcome that education barrier, this kind of complexity associated with kind of managing your assets on chain? Agents are going to remove that instantaneously. You're just going to be able to communicate directly with your agent. You don't need to know how to bridge tokens, manage gas fees, kind of understand what kind of different chains are. You're just going to be able to execute, right? And I don't think we're looking hard enough at what infrastructure looks like post-complexity in crypto. And that's something that we're going to hit very, very soon.
Scott, how are you thinking about that?
Yeah, the question was like, how are we changing the infrastructure development with the advent of this agent?
Or if it is, I'm not even sure if it is, but are agents kind of like, is there a circular thing?
I think very much. Yeah. I was pondering it when Mark was talking. We like internally in Space and Time, we've call it 35 engineers or so, and they're already thinking like, hey, we have our own kind of code gen tools that we use internally, and they were trying to kind of make them an API that third parties can use, and we're like a lot of new infrastructure development. We're trying to build AI first, like make sure like the first line of code written was generated, rather than taking like a bunch of code that we already built, that we hand coded over the last 2-3 years before we had a ton of really good development agents, and then like adding an agent on top to a bunch of code that's already written by humans. We're trying to start agent first. Now, like, what does that look like on chain? So I think about protocols that are sort of like SDK first or like API first, where like a DeFi protocol that's less concerned about what the UI is and more concerned about like how can agents use like abstracted key infrastructure, abstracted wallet infrastructure to trade on a user's behalf. Like intents, right? There's this new kind of popular term in crypto around intents, and I know Near's doing a lot with intents, which is really excited, and there's a lot of other teams, and intents is like could become like an AI first UX for DeFi. Finally, on the Space and Time side, like what we did for our user experience and our developer experience is we just kind of co-engineered with Microsoft, like with a bunch of Azure AI Lab engineers and our own engineers. We built a very specific, sophisticated prompt to SQL engine so that like developers can write a prompt that gets turned into SQL that their smart contracts can run on chain to get the data they need, or their AI agents can run to get the data. But like writing SQL is a painful 10-minute, 20-minute, 30-minute process when you have a big query. And thank God, like AI just writes it now for all of our users. So like today, at least half, if not more, like I think like 55% of the queries that are run against Space and Time were first generated by an AI agent, which is like a very AI first developer experience.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. I think you're right. This kind of focus away almost from UX. Like it's funny that we say that because we suck at UX, right?
Yeah.
Like crypto sucks at UX, right? But this focus away from UX, this ability to like build an ecosystem that's just very accessible by agents, I think is a really good point. And this intent-based ecosystem kind of structure that a lot of kind of projects are leaning into is fascinating as well, right? I still don't fully understand it. It feels like magic to me. You know what I mean? This idea that you just put a request into the protocol, right? And then the request will get kind of met. You don't need to kind of understand what you're asking for. You don't need to kind of have this kind of technical kind of connection to the request. You just have to have the ability to request. And I think that you're right. That's going to be a fascinating kind of growth sector built largely on the back of kind of AI.
Do you guys have a sense of, within the larger decentralized AI infrastructure framework, of a pie chart, what chunk of that uses tokens and what will not? I'm just getting my arms around to what extent tokens in cryptocurrency is a necessary fuel for this engine. And there are some projects where it's explicit, and there are some where I don't see mention of it at all, right? So what's your gut on that, of how important tokens will be to all of this?
So you have two categories around, of cryptocurrency and AI, in my very humble opinion. One is using cryptocurrency to bootstrap like a large economy that you couldn't, like an economy of scale, which is what Bitcoin was, what Ethereum was, what most L1s are. Bootstrap a large number of validators, a large number of commodity servers contributed to your network, incentivized by a new token. Aethir is that for GPUs, like an economy of scale of onboarding a lot of GPUs where the token is the incentive to do so. On the other hand, there's like agents transacting on chain using crypto as just a better payment mechanism, as a better way to transfer money on the internet, as just a way to move capital between parties on the internet. And like, I think it was Kal Samani from Multicoin that tweeted like 2 weeks ago, like, hey, why do AI agents need to transact on chain? You can just give them your credit card. And that's like a valid question. I think everyone was
I've had that question for a while. I was too scared to ask that. So
yeah, like why can't I just give my agent my Visa? And
right.
Why do they need to transact on chain? I would pose the question differently. I would say, do users have cryptocurrency that they want to do things with? Like you have an AI agent that's an assistant that helps you do something, like an AI agent that helps you purchase a flight to London or a flight to Bangkok, or you have an AI agent that helps you make DeFi transactions or take out a loan on chain. If you're buying a flight to Bangkok with your AI agent assistant, I think you will give them your credit card. I think there'll be very thin, like very well-defined parameters where you've set up a very contained amount of money, like, hey, I'm willing to spend 700 USD on this flight. I have an AI agent infrastructure or an AI agent assistant that I give my credit card, and it spends $700 with Asia Air, and it buys my flight for me. That's very different than like me trying to bridge money over to an L2 to take out a loan, and that's a lot of work for me, so I just have my agent do it. If I already have crypto, of course it's going to transact on chain. And blockchain just offers a better programmatic way for agents to transact. So long story short, I think both will be very important. I don't think it's either or. I think the blockchain is a better way for agents to transact programmatically, but there will be very isolated use cases where, of course, you can give it your credit card.
Mark, do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you said that really well. I think one kind of thing to look at here is that as we increasingly offload work to AI agents, right, the requirement to understand and be able to kind of measure and kind of oversee that work is pretty critical. And I think that obviously the blockchain is this kind of immutable, transparent kind of ledger, this ability to kind of understand exactly what these agents are doing. And that, there's an element of oversight that I think is important as we start to kind of offload this responsibility that the blockchain does provide.
Where do you guys think we are in the timeline of all this for infrastructure? Mark, I love how you mentioned earlier that, given cycles, it could be a dirty word in Web3. Do you have a sense that it's imminence of this becoming mainstream, having enough infra built that everyone in this room, but more importantly, because this room is a very self-selecting crowd, right? This room's brothers, sisters, grandparents. When do you think this will be something that truly gets mainstreams? And then let's tackle what challenges do we have to get there. Scott, what are your thoughts?
The data infrastructure is maturing really fast. Space and time's part of that. We're accelerating, like providing AI agents a lot of data and a lot of context about what's happening on chain. I think we'll get there like in 2025 to where 90% of the boxes are checked off of what agents need in terms of data. But going mainstream is interesting. I think it's like it rides off the coattails of success stories, right? When we see like small success stories like Luna agent from Virtuals that's got everyone excited and it's going viral on Twitter, and I'm taking 20 minutes to see what the AI agent's gonna live stream. That gets people really excited, and then you get a massive amount of development effort that's poured into that sector. So like now, starting today, we're starting to see tons of developers wake up and be like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Wait, I see a success story, I see what's possible, and start to like ruminate on what's possible, start to build their own agents that are more consumer focused that could go mainstream. Like agents that have 500,000 followers on TikTok and they're live streaming their own content, but they're accepting tips, accepting donations, accepting payments in crypto. Not like people connecting Stripe and typing in their credit card to tip an AI agent. It's gonna be crypto that primarily they accept. And so it's mainstream, but it's, you know, maybe not like your grandmother using it quite yet.
Mark, as far as the infrastructure itself, I mean, before we get to the actual grandmas all, you know, aping into these things, when will the rails be sufficiently built?
I think a lot of the rails are already there, right? I think that, like we're seeing in this kind of these agents that are going viral, you're starting to see some really cool kind of demos, right? On the Binance, in Binance Week, kind of 2 weeks ago, BitGPT did a really cool demo, right, where they had their agent live on stage. It sent a transaction to someone in the audience, right? Like it executed stuff that's a little bit complex for the average person. And I think that it's there, right? The rails are there. The agents are just becoming increasingly capable. I think that the pieces that are maybe not there yet, right? And I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Is like, let's say I choose to personally invest my time, my data in an agent that can act on my behalf, right? I don't necessarily know whether the infrastructure to protect that data transfer is necessarily ready yet. Right? I know that there's an agent that can probably go on chain and do a transaction on my behalf, but is there an agent that I can maybe trust with my data in a way that kind of protects that data, that doesn't kind of share that with the broader model that's kind of powering the agent? I don't know. What's your take on that, Scott?
Good question. Yeah, I mean that was the whole promise of Web3, at least in the last cycle. So much was talked about returning ownership of data back to the internet's constituents because it was stolen from us in the Facebook decade, where we just gave our data to Google and Facebook and they sold it, they productized it. And there was this, like, in the 2021 cycle, there was so much promise of crypto giving back ownership and control of data to consumers. From a LLM standpoint, I think you're gonna need high quality decentralized GPUs, and you're gonna need teams building privacy solutions and decentralized LLM inference on top of that for that to occur. Like right now, we give all of our data to OpenAI via ChatGPT. I think that I think you're exactly right. If the question is what's missing, that's definitely missing today, is a way to protect consumers from providing that data. I'm thinking about it more about capital, protect consumers' capital. Like, I didn't even think, I'm wasting time as a data company.
That's a great segue to our final lightning round style question. Real quick, give us a prediction. Give us a 20 seconds or less infrastructure, AI prediction. Next year, 5 years, dealer's choice.
I predict that smart contracts will be a policy engine for controlling capital, like putting tight guardrails around how AI agents can spend money on your behalf, who they can send money to. What kind of portfolio of blue chips versus meme coins can they buy for you? Like the beauty of smart contracts is they can be a policy engine that control like how agents use your money, who they send it to, et cetera.
Love that. Mark, quick prediction.
Yeah, I think we're going to be post complexity in crypto very, very soon. The next maybe 3 to 4 months. I think that the crypto space is going to explode with a bunch of useless AI agents that are executing on chain, a large amount of noise from a smart contract perspective, a large amount of noise on Twitter and social media. I think we're going to go through a blizzard of these sorts of kind of actions, but I think that there's going to be some really cool stuff that appears and survives as a result.
Amazing. Great discussion. Enjoyed it. Thanks, guys. Thank you all.